This program is made possible in part by Cerisi Conlon LLP, protecting the future and using the law as a force for good in both the courtroom and our communities. Online at cerisiconlon.com.
Hello and welcome. You're in for a treat tonight. Lonnie Dupre is back with me. If you have seen a lot of my shows, you've seen a couple of his other interviews. Lonnie is an internationally known explorer, adventurer, Arctic traveler. He spent about 30 of his years in the Arctic. He is an environmentalist, I think becoming more so as he travels more and more. And he's an author, and he's written some wonderful books. So we're going to talk tonight specifically about a expedition, get that word out, that he just came back from in Greenland. And the trip started in February, and there's still some of your team there.
Yeah.
So he's fresh off the ice. So welcome, Lonnie.
Thank you, Mary.
It's wonderful to have you back.
It's lovely to be here.
We have a video we're going to show, and do you want to just set it up?
Yeah, Mary. The video that we're going to see is some archival footage we shot 23 years ago during our circumnavigation of Greenland. It shows a little bit about the Inuit, polar Inuit communities we traveled to, a little bit of dog sledding. There might even be a little kayaking in there, I'm not quite sure, but
a little.
Yeah, it should be fun. I've dedicated about 30 years of my life to traveling in the Arctic, and between 1997 and 2001, John Holzier and I decided to circumnavigate Greenland by kayaking around the southern part of the island in the summer and then dog sledding over the north in the wintertime. Greenland is a place where ice is born because the majority of North American icebergs are created in Greenland. And this is home of the polar Inuit. These polar Inuit villages of Greenland are the northernmost villages in the world. And we want to go back to visit Greenland and to see the changes that may have happened in the last 20 years, and to visit the polar Inuit up in Connaught and see how their lives are changing, see how they're adapting to climate change. The thing that fascinated me the most with the Inuit people was that they could live off of the land which seemed otherwise inhospitable to us. They are able to find berries, they're able to find where the fish spawn, they're able to hunt seals and walrus below the ice. They could make caribou and fox and polar bear into garments. This is tradition that has been handed down over 5,000 years from the elders to the younger generations. Just the ingenuity and the improvisation that they could implement to stay alive and live up there was amazing to me. The Inuit have this amazing relationship with their sled dogs. Their sled dogs cannot survive without them, and they cannot survive without the sled dogs. The sled dogs are used for transportation, they're used for smelling out seal holes, they're used for protecting them against polar bears. Now with climate change, every year the planet is getting warmer. And so Greenland is losing vast amounts of ice, both on the ice cap and the surrounding sea ice. And this sea ice is how the Inuit travel back and forth to hunting grounds in other villages. And that sea ice is becoming thinner and thinner and more dangerous to dog sled on and to hunt on. The Inuit rely on snow and ice on a daily basis. They're losing their culture and having to make drastic changes in their life right now, today, whereas we don't quite understand that. here. And so we're going to convey that message with the film.
So it was in the late 90s, in 2001, you and a friend, John Heschler,
Yes.
went all the way around Greenland by kayak and dog sled.
Yeah,
right?
it was a expedition that lasted over 5.5 years. We did a 6,500-mile circumnavigation of Greenland, half by kayak in the south and the other half by dog sled in the north.
And the first team to do this,
That was
right?
the first and only
And
circumnavigation.
no one's done it since.
I don't, not
Not
to
no
my
one.
knowledge, no.
Or not successfully, maybe. Wow. And your decision now to return to Greenland, was it partly based on things that you left undone when you were there 23 years ago, or?
You know, when we were there 2 decades ago, it feels like we accomplished everything we wanted to while we were there. But having time pass, 23 years to be exact, I wanted to go back and see if there was, what changes have occurred in Greenland since I was gone, and primarily not just Greenland as a whole, but to the people, the Polar Inuit that live in the far northwest part of Greenland, and changes that might have been affected by climate change, or just how things have progressed since I left, like. Do people have smartphones, for instance? What are the houses looking like? Who's still there that I met and who's not, and all those things. So I was curious to see if they still use dog sleds to travel, or has snow machines taken place of the dog teams? Are they still hunting, or are they fishing? Yeah, and so I wanted to go back to these people that I really love and care about, and have a good visit and see what's going on there.
And you made a comment that I heard or read somewhere, that you said something to the effect, Lonnie, of if people get to see Greenland and experience it via the film you're going to do, documentary, they're going to feel closer and more connected to it. And with that kind of connection, good things happen, right?
Yeah, I feel if people are connected to the environment, then they want to protect it. They want to be a part of trying to make it better. And I think that's important. And I think a lot of people that spend time outdoors, whether it's canoeing or skiing or dog sledding or whatever, they really appreciate the outdoors, and they appreciate the environment, and they understand how important that is to people to have the outdoors in our daily lives, and a good reason to protect it.
So how do you think the people have changed in some of the bigger ways?
Well, how people have changed in the last 20 years, I think, not so much that way, other than what they do. They used to be primarily hunters. Now their culture has switched more to fishing. And because fishing is now an economic base to the communities up there, because they can now go out onto the fjord ice, cut holes in the ice, and put hooks down there with bait on them, and fish for these fish called Greenland halibut. And they get paid quite handsomely for per kilo of these fish. And so this is providing a new economic base for Quannock. Whether or not that's going to be sustainable is yet to be seen. So instead of now hunting most of the time, a lot of times they're fishing. So that's a big change that has happened up there since I was there last.
Just a follow-up question on that. Does the decision to leave the hunting, is that partly because there isn't as much to hunt, or is it because it's harder to travel via dog sled to hunt.
Yeah, no, they're switching over to fishing because it pays.
It's totally
Hunting doesn't pay. It subsidizes your lifestyle there. So it puts meat on the table. Hunting provides fur for clothing and things like that, where fishing provides cash.
Okay.
And so that's the difference between the two there. Some prefer to do a little bit of both. Some are just fishermen, some are just solely hunters. And so that's what's going on there. So when I was there 2 decades ago, there were 3 times more dog teams than there is now, because there's less people hunting and more people fishing. And in some of the fishing now, snow machines are taking the place of dog sleds. So the people can go out fishing with the snow machine, catch what they need to catch, and be back in the village sooner and home for dinner. Versus by dog team, it might take all day to get out there, fish, all day to get back. So now you're taking a 1-day fishing thing into 3 days with a dog team.
When you went, thinking of the dogs, up there this past few months ago, how many dogs were you traveling with?
Yeah, when I first got to Greenland in January, my first priority was to get a dog team. And so I talked to everybody that I knew about getting a dog team, and finally came up with, managed to get 13 dogs. And then they were pretty skinny and pretty weak when I got them, but I fattened them up and I gave them 2 good meals a day and started working with them every day. And finally we had a good team to be able to travel, because it's really important when you're in these villages to be able to travel outside these villages. Right. Otherwise, you're pretty isolated. You're pretty stuck.
It should be very isolated.
And relying on other people. So since I'm able to drive dogs, and those dogs specifically, I got a team right away so we could travel to all these places we needed to go in order to do a film, in order to visit old friends from way back, see what has changed within the villages, and see what has changed on the landscape. And so that's what we did. And it was, it felt like when I got to drive dogs again, it felt like I never left off from when I was there 20 years ago. And so that felt good. Yeah, I just got right back on the saddle and started traveling with the dogs.
And these dogs are not what we think of as our family pet dogs. I mean, they're wild dogs.
Yeah, the Inuit dogs are just, they're about 25% domesticated and 75% wild. Okay. And these dogs have lived a feast and famine lifestyle with the Inuit for over 5,000 years. They're really super hardy, and
like the Inuit.
Yeah, like the Inuit. And so we use those dogs to travel everywhere up there in and around the communities and back into the wilderness and up onto the glaciers and onto the ice caps and down fjords and things like that.
And they're dogs that hadn't necessarily worked together before, had they?
No, so I had to put together this whole team and tried to mix and match to make sure they could work out together, because it's like bringing a pack of wolves together that don't know each other. And so there's a lot of, fighting, and there's a lot of not working well together. But then eventually, who's going to be alpha dog and that kind of stuff. So it was just, it's a full-time job, just getting them, keeping them fed, keeping them working good together, and keeping their harnesses in good running order, and all the lines that are required, and hooked to the sled and all that. So
I would think ordinarily, Lonnie, it would take ideally several months to get a functioning dog team trained.
Yeah, normally it would, but I knew the ropes pretty well there, so I managed to get a team together right away, and then I just started focusing solely on the dogs and getting them in the best shape possible so we could do our extended journeys and complete our film objective in the 4 months that we were there.
The film objective, let's hear that before I go any further, because people are going to be wanting to see the film when it's done.
Yeah. So the cinematographer and photographer that was with me, Eva Capizzola, her and I traveled with Inuit hunters and traveled to some remote locations, hunting and living with these people and interviewing these people on their lives there up there, because these are the northernmost people in the world. They live.
No villages are further north.
None
right?
are further north, and they're still living a very traditional lifestyle where hunting is the mainstay, fishing's the mainstay, and we just wanted to find out what can we learn from them, what can we take back from them that we can tell other people about that might even improve our own lives. You know, like, you know, living more simply with a little less stuff, and spend more time outside, and getting in tune with the environment. And that's a thing that I think we often can lose in the hustle and bustle of being here.
Do you think all those goals and observations, do you think the Inuit people convinced you that yes, we should live more simply, they're doing it, we can do it, yes, we should spend more time outdoors? Were you convinced as you revisited?
Yes and no, but I'm seeing changes up there, like everybody's got smartphones.
They do.
Everybody's got smartphones.
I don't have
now.
a smartphone.
Everybody's got smartphones. Everybody's on social media. You got these same little houses, you know, where the paint's peeling off and the wind is tore half the siding off because of the environment up there, but yet everybody got a big screen TV in the house. And so there's these changes that are happening in such
they're not living
a fast
so
way.
Simply as they used to, are they?
No. Matter of fact, when I was there 23 years ago, there was very few houses that had any kind of television in them. And if they were tiny little black and whites, and phones were just rotary dial phones on the wall. And but now with satellite communication and cellular phones and all that stuff, things are happening rapidly there. They're switching over. Some are switching over from dog sleds to snow machines now.
But no roads that allow cars, right?
Well, there's no roads between villages because these villages are very landlocked in a very mountainous environment, and the only way to travel from one village to the next is on the fjord, either on the ice by dog team, or when it's open up, you can travel by boat. But otherwise, you can't travel over land because it's too mountainous, and then there's ice cap behind that.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I didn't think there were cars there, but I didn't know why. But that makes
but within the community there are cars that will drive. Even though the community you can see from one end to the next, there are cars that will drive back and forth to bring supplies from one end of the community to another, or what have you. And some of the cars now, unfortunately, are being used on the fjord ice when the fjord ice is thick enough to transport fish from one part of the fjord to the other. And that's new to me. I never would have ever expected that. But again, fishing is creating a cash economy there, and
money drives a lot of
a lot of things.
Do you think the recent horrible news about the ice shelves dropping. And has that scared them? How does it affect their daily lives?
Well, I think the biggest change that I've seen environmentally up there is that the fjord ice thickness deep in the fjord. When I was there 2 decades ago, the ice thickness was about 7 feet thick.
Wow.
Deep in the fjord.
Wow.
When I was there this year during the coldest time of the year, and when the ice should have been its thickest, was just under 2 feet. So I started thinking, is this because it's warming, the air temperature is warming up there, which it is, but not significant enough, I think, to cause that much melting. But I think what's happening is you're getting warmer water, ocean currents moving into these fjords and melting the ice from underneath. And so this makes, because you need, in the winter months, you need fjord ice to be able to travel on, whether it's down from village to village or fishing grounds or hunting grounds or across it by dog team. But that season where dog sledding's possible is becoming shorter and shorter and shorter because the ice is becoming forming later, melting sooner, and then when you can sled on it, there's areas that are unsafe and very thin because the ice is quite thin.
One of your photos that you shared with me this week showed the dog sleds with, looked like slushy snow, just really wet.
Yeah, so what happens when the ice is that thin is the salt will leach up from the seawater, making the ice quite gray and actually slushy on the top.
Okay.
And you, a lot of times you can read the ice when you're getting there with your dogs, going, oh, this isn't safe, this is safe. And so depending on the color and consistency of the ice.
But dogs and dog sleds, how much thickness do they require to feel safe?
Well, we can actually sled on ice that's only this thick.
Oh, you can. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's not affecting the Inuit people yet.
Only that or you get around ocean current, you get around land heads or capes where the current is accelerating. The ice might be thick enough here, but it might be almost non-existent next to the cape. So it just depends. It depends very much to ocean currents right now.
So it would really make experience important if you're going to be traveling up there by dog sled.
These Inuit people, they live on the ice their whole lives and they're very experienced. But even as experienced as they were, when we were traveling down the Pacific, there is human error, and you can run across ice that is not safe by accident, and we did, and we fell through the ice with our dogs. We managed to get out, and everybody was safe.
Oh my gosh.
But it was a very, very sobering experience because had the whole team gotten in the water, it would have been quite catastrophic. So we managed to just stay up on the ice as it was breaking. Nobody got completely wet other than some feet, but we did dogs managed to pull us out onto safe ice.
Oh, that must have been.
And so, of course, our hearts are, pounding.
I mean, can you imagine if all the dogs had gone in?
Oh, yeah, I can imagine, but I didn't want to.
You didn't want to think of that catastrophe.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, and so we got out, and it actually ended our trip a little bit early going south to Pacific, so we turned around and went over the ice cap in a more safe manner, returning back to Connacht.
Will you have a map in the documentary final that will show us the exact route that you took on this trip?
We will,
good.
Yeah.
Okay, good. And when do you think the documentary will be ready to view?
Well, we're Eva and I are just starting to work on it now, and so it will probably be. It takes such a long time, all that, as you would
editing.
Know. So it might be just under a year before we see anything.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. How about some writing about it? You're such a good writer. Are you going to do any? blogging or writing so we can
Yeah,
at least
I hope
read
to do
that?
some writing on Greenland. Right now I've just been back about 5 weeks, so I'm just kind of letting it all
So be quiet, Mary, don't push me, right?
I'm going to let it soak in a little bit,
Yeah,
and then I'll probably begin writing in another couple weeks.
Okay.
Yeah.
You said to me you're pretty exhausted after being back, 4 weeks, 5 weeks.
Yeah.
Is that typical for you?
I think this trip was more difficult on me than most because we were responsible for a lot of people on this trip to make everything happen, and of course, this trip, not everything happened according to plan.
And you were the team leader.
Yeah,
correct,
and
right?
it makes it just made up for quite a bit more work. But in the end, we got everything we wanted. Film-wise.
That's amazing.
And pretty excited about it. I haven't even seen all the footage yet, but based on the interviews and the terrain and the hunters we were traveling with, I think it's going to be some amazing material.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
We have 1 minute left. Was there one brief takeaway that you could share with the viewers about this trip?
Yeah, I think for me, it's always been about the dogs, right? The Inuit dogs, and it's the Inuit dogs that are going to be the thread through this whole movie, because the Inuit dogs are the companion, the inseparable companion to the Inuit people, and I guess as explorers, to us explorers that have used dogs over the years. And that goes back to the explorers of Robert Perry and Fridtjof Nansen and Knud Rasmussen, because if
and
it wasn't
your great grandfather
and
Cartier.
And so the Inuit dog will be the thread that weaves the story together throughout the film.
Well, thank you so much for driving down. He drove down from Grand Marais. I wish we had more time. This has just been great, though, to get a really, immediate kind of report on this big expedition. And congratulations.
Thank you,
You
Mary,
got
so
everything
much.
you wanted. That's great.
Thank you for having me.
Oh,
Appreciate
of course.
it.
Thank you for joining us. I'll be back again next week. Until then, have a good week.